Hello everyone, it's Makeda Voletta, welcome, also known as the Body Scientist. So I hope you all are feeling great today. Today I'm going to do a video on digestive health. It's one of my favorite topics. I'm recording on two cameras because I like to repost these videos onto my YouTube page, and sometimes the IG Live video does not download, so I apologize in advance for looking in two different places. Oh wait, my video, sorry, somebody called me. Hold on one second. A friend of mine just called me. Hold on, let me just tell them. Okay, so, okie dokie, let me bring this other camera back. Okay, so, digestive health is one of my favorite things to talk about. Okay, it's something I've been studying for many, many years. So a lot of you who've been following me, you're probably familiar with my background. In exercise science, in nutrition, that's why they call me the body scientist. I study the body and how it functions and how to bring it to its highest level. And as a nutrition person, a lot of people, when it comes to food, they don't really think about nutrition. The main reason to eat is to get nutrients, right? And just because something has a certain amount of nutrients in it doesn't mean that we're absorbing it. So your health starts in your gut, and so does your immune system. So this is really, really important. There's a book that I posted on my Body Scientist page recently called Restore Your Digestive Health. And it's written by a gastroenterologist, a medical doctor named Joseph Brasco, and by a naturopathic medical doctor named Jordan S. Rubin, whose probiotics I always recommend, called Garden of Life. I think it is the best probiotic supplement on the market. So I do have a YouTube video on intestinal dysbiosis. But just briefly, intestinal dysbiosis is when you have an imbalance of bacteria in your gut. So we have like thousands of different species of bacteria in our gut, billions of different colony-forming units, billions of bacteria in our gut, okay? And we have a microbiome in our gut, okay? A microecosystem. Good and bad bacteria, like all living things have certain requirements for life. Like, for example, we can't decide to go jump in the ocean and say that we're going to live in the ocean. Even though there's life in the ocean, there's oxygen in the ocean, H2O, but it's not the right percentage of oxygen that we need, so we would suffocate if we try to live in the ocean. And the creatures in the ocean, if they tried to come live in our house, they would suffocate, okay? So we have different requirements for life. If you take the plants from the desert and plant them in the rainforest, they will die. Too much water. If you take the rainforest plants and plant them in the desert, they will die. So all living organisms have certain requirements for life. Same thing is true of bacteria. Some bacteria love acid. Some die in the presence of acid. Some bacteria love oxygen. Others can't survive in the presence of oxygen, okay? Now, generally speaking, disease-causing bacteria are anaerobic, which means that oxygen kills them, okay? And so if you have a lot of oxygen-producing bacteria in your gut, which are really the hydrogen peroxide-producing bacteria in your gut that are producing hydrogen peroxide, creating an oxygenated environment, if you come in contact with an infectious organism, an infectious bacterial strain or virus, it won't be able to survive. It'll suffocate and die. Just like if you try to go jump in the ocean and say, I'm going to go live in the bottom of the ocean, you will suffocate and die, okay? So just remember that about your gut. We have a microecosystem. So, and we never know when we're being exposed to infectious disease. We're being exposed to infectious disease. We could be exposed to infectious diseases all kinds of ways, from somebody coughing in your face, somebody could spit on the ground and you walk by and they have tuberculosis and you breathe the air and you get exposed to it. You can get exposed to it from someone touching you, from the food we eat, the water we drink. As somebody who has a background in nutrition science and food science, I can tell you that most of the food that we consume in this country is not inspected at all. And it's extremely easy to get some type of infection from food that's not inspected and food that's coming from across the country or from another country. Very easy. And we don't find out about these outbreaks until somebody dies. And when somebody dies from eating the spinach, then they're like, oh, we have E. coli or some bacteria in the spinach. We have a recall. But they don't tell us that until somebody's died first, right? The difference between the person who dies, one person can eat that and die. The other person eats it and throws up. Another person can eat it and has no effect. Now, that has everything to do with your microecosystem, okay? We have to, getting your immune system up is so critical. And the bacteria, our skin is a huge part of our immune system because things get into our body very easily through our skin. This is the reason why I'm very into skincare, and it's something I talk about a lot too, like using good natural things on your skin, because your skin is our biggest organ and it helps to protect us, but also our gut. And so most people have something called intestinal dysbiosis. Most people in developed countries have it because, for a number of reasons, like maybe 100 years ago, maybe even when my parents were growing up, but definitely 100 years ago, people just playing on the dirt, you got to inoculate it with good bacteria. But now, because of monocropping, pesticides, herbicides used by the commercial food industry, our soil is depleted of these beneficial microorganisms called homeostatic soil organisms that they secrete hydrogen peroxide, right? So, and hydrogen peroxide is shown to kill so many infectious diseases. I was even at a friend's house the other day, and they had like some Lysol hydrogen peroxide cleaner in the house, and I don't use like, toxic cleaning products, but hydrogen peroxide, right? A known killer. And so I look at the bottle, and it says on the back of the bottle for your house that it kills the herpes virus. Now, this is true. Hydrogen peroxide kills lipid-contained viruses, okay? The herpes virus, the HPV virus, those are all lipid-contained viruses. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I don't need anybody coming after me, but do your research. It kills lipid-contained viruses, and it kills like almost all microorganisms. So if you have hydrogen peroxide producing bacteria in your gut, that is a lot for your immune system, okay? And so, what was I going to say? So yeah, we used to get inoculated from playing in the dirt, eating fruits and vegetables. Now our dirt in America and a lot of developed countries is depleted of that. So we don't get that anymore. Then we used to get it from raw dairy. Like both of my parents, my dad's from Florida. My mom is from rural Pennsylvania, out like 30 minutes away from Pittsburgh in the middle of nowhere. Both of them talk about how the milkman used to bring milk to their door when they were growing up. So when you're getting that milk right from in African friends of mine, I know people who've grown up, excuse me, I've known people who grew up in different African countries who grew up drinking milk right from the cow. That has a lot of beneficial bacteria. I actually drink raw milk everywhere I go to try to get inoculated with a wider variety of bacterial strains. This is the reason why, like, a lot of times if we go to Mexico or we go to Haiti, we might come back with an upset stomach and sick because we're not used to those bacterial strains. The people that are living there might be fine, but we can't deal with it. So it's like the more you expose yourself to bacterial strains, your immune system becomes stronger. This is the other thing about immunity. The whole idea behind a vaccine is that once your body's exposed to this virus or whatever, your body creates antibodies, which strengthens your immune system. You do not get a strong immune system from being in a sterile environment. If you try to stay in a sterile environment, like let's say somebody has a baby and they try to keep the baby in a 100% sterile environment their entire life, their immune system is so weak. So actually, our immune system builds up by becoming exposed to things. Whether or not you become sick from something has to do with your own microbiome. So when people say, oh, so-and-so made me sick, this person made me sick, people don't make you sick. You can become exposed to something. But if you get sick, that's because your microecosystem is already off. I can't remember the last time I had a cold. I can't remember the last time. I really don't. And I know so many people that get 3 colds a year. They got a cold in the summer. They got a cold in the winter. They got a cold in the fall. They got a cold in the spring. I can't remember the last time I had a cold. And if somebody around me is like, oh, I have a cold, I have a flu, I don't want to make you sick, I'm not even worried about that because I know that I have a lot of good bacteria in my gut and like I have a strong immune system. And so we also inherit the microbiome from our moms, okay? So when we're breastfed or when we come out of the vaginal canal, we get inoculated with our mother's bacteria. So a lot of that, like if you weren't born vaginally, I was actually born by C-section. That's a complicated story about how I was born. But I was like partially vaginal, partial C-section. But my mom did breastfeed, my twin and I. And so you get inoculated with that bacteria. So it starts with that. So if you have a baby who's born by C-section and never gets breast milk, they're starting off with like sometimes a depleted immune system. But if the mother's bacterial balance is not good, then that's not necessarily a good thing either to be exposed to your mother's microbiome. But also, okay, so I was saying that the dairy now is pasteurized. Let me stay on topic. The dairy is pasteurized now. Juice, if you buy juice in the store, the juice is pasteurized. We're not getting fermented foods. All cultures around the world consume fermented foods, all of them. Doesn't matter whether it's Africans, Asians, Europeans, Native Americans. Everybody has some type of fermented food in their diet, and it could be fermented vegetables, cheeses, and fermented dairy like cheeses and sour creams and yogurt. That's also fermented. And I think some people might even have fermented meats. Now, the fermentation, consuming fermented foods on a regular basis is super important also for that. The bacteria in our gut, it has everything to do with our digestion. It helps us to digest our food, and it helps us with our immune system, right? And so a lot of times when people have digestive issues, anytime someone has digestive issues, they have constipation, they have diarrhea, all that is linked to imbalances in bacteria. And so is skin problems. Like if you're having acne and like, what else? What is that stuff? Eczema, all that stuff starts in the gut. Okay. So any kind of like skin issues that you're having, it starts in the gut. It also has to do with what you put on your skin, but it starts with the gut first. Okay. Also, the bad bacteria, they crave sugar. The bad bacteria crave sugar. So some people who are addicted to sugar, and like they could be trying so hard to stop being addicted to sugar, and no matter what they do, they're still addicted. They can't stop eating all this sugar. I can guarantee you have imbalanced bacteria in your gut. And the bad bacteria are craving the sugar, so it overrides your own willpower. Like you might be like, I'm not going to eat the sugar, but you can't help it. It's like something's taken over you. It's that bacteria. When you fix, and as a nutritionist who's worked with people, when you won't be able to beat that on your own. When you fix that bacterial imbalance, you won't even crave all that sugar anymore. It's not to say that all of us don't like sweet things, but you won't be able to just be able to eat like donuts and cookies and all this sweet stuff. Like the only sweet thing I really care about really is ice cream, and ice cream has lots of saturated fat, and the saturated fat helps to it helps to decrease how quickly your blood sugar rises. Your blood sugar rises from the sugar. High blood sugar level spikes are not good unless you're about to like work out really hard or you just finished working out really hard, you know. So you want to like having saturated fat with sweet things like with fruit and stuff like that helps to counteract that blood sugar spike. But I never want to eat cake and cookies and stuff like that. Growing up, I did eat it, but I really don't ever crave it. It makes my stomach hurt looking at it. And so when you fix that bacterial imbalance, it also makes you stop craving stuff like that. And so like the reason why, this is something I love to talk about, but the reason why I ordered this book, like I had a client with Crohn's disease back in like 2004 when I was in graduate school. He had a very bad case of it. And that's when I really started like getting into depth with the probiotics and stuff like that, because any irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, which is on the rise, it's an autoimmune disease of the intestinal tract. What else? There's other ones. Any of those things are related to your bacterial imbalance. And so I have a good friend who I thought might have been suffering from another bacterial imbalance called C. diff, and I started to research this over the past couple weeks. And what I started to find is stuff that I already know. That number one, taking antibiotics. This is another reason why a lot of people have an imbalance of gut bacteria. Every single time you take antibiotics, it kills all of the bacteria, good and bad. We need the good bacteria to fight against the bad bacteria. Number one, most important thing is to have a lot of good bacteria. It needs to way outnumber the bad bacteria. Because if you have a lot of oxygen-producing bacteria in your gut, when you're exposed to the bad bacteria, it just dies. It can't survive. So that's the number one thing. Okay, so just remember, if you're getting infections and you're getting sick, it's because your body is already off balance. Your body is offering a welcoming ecosystem for that disease-causing organism to thrive. You get exposed to it, and it's like, oh, it can live here because it's the perfect environment for it. If you didn't have the perfect environment for it and you were exposed to it, it would not live and you would not get sick, but your immune system would just get stronger, right? So, and also people talk about acid and base, acid and alkaline, which I'll do another video about that. There's a lot of myths around that. People are so obsessed with alkalinity. Alkalinity can also be disease-causing too. Like certain parts of the body are meant to be acidic, like a woman's vaginal canal. An alkaline vagina is not a healthy vagina. An alkaline vagina is a breeding ground for diseases, okay? So, and infections. So this is the reason why, like, it's really important for women to maintain acidity in the vaginal canal. Same thing is true for our intestines and our digestive tract. And a lot of things, like even with herbs, that work on the digestive tract also affects, work on our sexual organs as well. And the vagina as well. And the uterus and stuff like that. Something else I was about to say. So every time we take antibiotics, it not only kills all the bacteria, but the bad bacteria mutate. So just remember this. Every time you take antibiotics, it causes the bad bacteria to mutate. And that creates super strains, okay? I remember in 1999, the Museum of Natural History in New York City, that's the year I graduated high school, the Museum of Natural History in New York City had an exhibit on the epidemic with antibacterial resistant antibiotic resistant bacteria, and antiviral resistant viruses. They had an exhibit about that in 1999. That was 19 years ago, okay? So back then the World Health Organization was talking about this as an epidemic. It is coming from hospitals and the food industry. Hospitals and doctors are always prescribing antibiotics. Even in a hospital, they're always using that antibacterial hand sanitizer stuff, which I think should be illegal. So many people, I would rather not wash my hands than to use antibacterial soap or that hand sanitizer crap. Because in 10th grade biology, we learned this, okay? 10th grade biology, we learned not to use it because of what I just told you. It kills all the bacteria, the good bacteria, which is your first line of defense against infectious disease. It kills that. And then the bad bacteria mutate and become more aggressive. So it creates super strains. That's why we're seeing like super resistant bacterial strains now because of the use of antibiotics. The bad bacteria cannot mutate to the fact that it can't stand oxygen. It can't live in the presence of oxygen. It can't mutate against that. It can't mutate. Certain things can't mutate against the fact that they can't survive in the presence of certain metals. Or they can't survive in an acidic environment. They don't mutate against that, but they will mutate against these artificial antibacterial agents that are being made. And so you're doing yourself no justice by using antibacterial hand sanitizer stuff. That stuff is straight garbage. Like I said, I would rather not wash my hands. And it's almost impossible to find a public bathroom that doesn't have antibacterial soap. Everybody has I remember even going to Costa Rica in 2006, and I was in the jungle, in the middle of nowhere. There was no road even, and they had antibacterial soap. Big problem, okay? You're better off using natural things. First of all, just use soap. Just wash your hands with regular soap. You don't need all that. That's number one. Number two, you can use things like aloe vera, grapefruit seed extract, coconut oil. There are a lot of natural antimicrobial herbs and agents that you can use. Like if you want to spray that on you or put that on your hands, put some aloe vera on your hands or something like that. But I would never, ever, ever use that stuff. So now, if you take antibiotics a couple times, I also don't recommend antibiotics unless you get anthrax. Unless you get a disease, like some kind of infection that can kill you in like 24 hours, that's the only time I would take antibiotics. And even in that case, I would take a serious dose of probiotics as well to counteract what's about to happen. But other than that, no. If you get a bacterial infection, you need to correct the problem. Taking antibiotics will only make it worse. If for some reason you don't believe me and you still want to go ahead and take the antibiotics, then make sure you take a serious dose of probiotics with it and when you're done. But I still say don't take the antibiotics at all, okay? So, because you're causing, every time you take it, it makes the problem worse and worse and worse and harder to come back from. So if you are like battling serious, issues, like some people might have a serious infection, it could be a viral infection. First of all, there are bacterial strains that kill viruses, okay? So when we get told that viruses are incurable, not true. And there are lots of studies on this, and I have worked with people with certain incurable viruses that the viruses are no longer there. And again, something I don't want to talk too much about because I don't need any problems in my life, right? Now, I'm just telling you, that's not true. And there are lots of studies that you can look into. So this book, Restoring Your Digestive Health, I remember like back in like 2005 maybe, I gave it to a friend of mine, one of my best friends, she's a nurse, very smart girl, had serious gastrointestinal problems. I think she had irritable bowel syndrome. And I told her to read it. I never read it. Now I'm just looking at it now. And everything that I'm seeing in it are things that I agree with. And this is, like I said, I have been doing research for years. So I'm not somebody who just went and read a little article or read some little guru book and think I know everything, and like a lot of people who do not take the time to do the research and don't have a scientific background to do research and don't have enough sense to be quiet and spend years researching before they start talking and giving people advice. That's not me. So everything that I speak about, I understand, I can back it up, and is well-founded. So somebody asked me what the book is called. Well, it's on my Instagram page, The Body Scientist, but it's called Restoring Your Digestive Health. See? You can find it easily on Amazon. Now, a few things in this book, right? So I know someone, a friend of mine, who's dealing with some serious gastrointestinal problems. Like he has a case of Crohn's, and it started years ago with taking a colon cleanser. And so when he opened up the book, he opened up this book to that page, and he was like, oh my God, I wish I had found this book years ago, because the page he opened it up to said colon cleanses are not good. We do not recommend them at all. And this is also something that me, as a healthcare practitioner, never recommended to anybody. I have never recommended anybody do colon cleansers. But a lot of so-called holistic practitioners, especially Black Afrocentric ones, who are kind of embarrassing to me, because a lot of these so-called Afrocentric Black, healing people in the United States, what they're talking about is not Afrocentric at all. And if you actually talk to Africans to see what Africans eat, it's not that, okay? They try to claim that Africans are vegetarians and all this stuff. No, okay, no. So, whole other discussion. I have other YouTube videos about that. But I never recommend anybody taking colon cleanser. And it was talking about how the colon cleansing, it makes the waves in the intestinal tract. It's called peristalsis. It's how your intestines work. It digests food and works it out. Just like when you see a snake eat, how that food like kind of works through those muscles, right? The colon cleansers makes it so that your intestines can't really work anymore, and you become addicted to it, and you need it, and they're very abrasive. Okay, so they can cause a lot of issues. And so the book was talking about that. The book was also talking about diet. And how, because one of these people is a gastroenterologist, and he was talking about how he was prescribing all this medicine to his patients, and he wasn't noticing anybody getting any better, and it was frustrating. And so he talks about how he was a vegetarian and how it didn't work. He was diabetic and all this different stuff. Now, me as a nutritionist, I'm totally anti-vegetarian vegan. Okay, I've seen so much damage happen from that. And anybody who tells me, well, I feel great. Okay, let's see how you feel 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And let's see your blood work as well, okay? What you telling me how you feel doesn't mean anything to me, because I feel great too, and I have never been a vegan. Okay, so he talks about how like all the grains and raw vegetables and stuff is not good for your gastrointestinal tract. And anybody with gastrointestinal issues will tell you they cannot eat raw vegetables. So people who are trying to promote like raw foods diets and eating those raw vegetables, not good. Vegetables actually are very hard for us to digest. We do not have the cellulase enzyme. Vegetables are full of cellulose. You can look this up. And so this is the reason why, in order for us to digest vegetables easier, we need to cook them with a fat or lacto-ferment them. That's how vegetables become more digestible. But consuming raw vegetables is not good. Raw kale and raw spinach and all that lettuce, not good. Okay, raw broccoli, those things are actually not good for you. And there's lots of stuff about that. And then like the grains and stuff like that, like consuming like too many beans, and that is not good for your digestive tract, and it can make you diabetic. I mean, look at India. People always want to point to India when it comes to eating, but India has a diabetes epidemic that is worse than the United States. What do they eat in India? Well, for one thing, they don't eat pork, and most of the world eats pork. The healthiest, longest-living people in the world eat pork. The Okinawa in Japan, who are the healthiest, longest-living people in the world, they cook with lard every single day. And lard is almost the same thing as olive oil. So oleic acid. Go look it up. Everything I'm saying, go look it up and do your own research. Okay? And they eat lots of pork in South America, in Puerto Rico, in Cuba, in DR, in Haiti. They eat lots of pork in Asia, whether it be Korea, Japan, China, blah, 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 blah. They eat lots of pork in the Polynesian Islands. Europeans, Africans who aren't Muslim, all eat pork. Okay, so if pork is so bad, then why is it the most commonly eaten thing around the world, and the healthiest, strongest people consume it? I mean, of course, you want to get pork from healthy sources. I recommend getting all your food from like local farms and local farmers markets. Anything that comes from the food industry is not good. The commercial food industry, whether it be pork or whether it be tomatoes, none of it's good. And you can check out my YouTube videos where I talk about that more. But people in India don't eat pork. People in India eat so many lentils and rice and all this stuff. They do consume dairy. They do consume cheeses and yogurts and stuff like that. So they get some of that, which is good. But I'm sorry, people in India, they're like the weakest people on the planet. Like a country with like 2 billion people. You never have ever. I've never seen Team India in any Olympics like play any sport, let alone win a medal. Just there. Like, do you ever see Team India in any sport ever compete? You know, let alone win anything. And they have a diabetes epidemic that is worse in the United States. So to me, they're not a good example to be following. They're not an example of a strong, robust, like long-living, healthy population. They're not. You know, Russians maybe, and some Africans and Haitians. I mean, I remember being in people from down south, like my family. I have tons of people in my family who live to be very old, and they all eat pork. Okay, so another story. So he talks about in this book about the importance of like butter and animal fats and all the things that I say about nutrition, right? Also in this book, he goes into depth about it. The other thing is that a lot of people over the years have asked me about this eat right for your body type diet, right? And I never read that book. I think it was written in the late 90s about eating for your body type. And over the years I've heard people say, oh, I'm a type A, so I'm not supposed to eat meat, and blah, 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 blah. And that's always, it always sounds like bullshit to me, okay? Because having a background, not just in science and biological science and chemistry and nutrition science, having that background, that never sounded right to me because I knew that there was never any piece of evidence ever that linked your blood type to what you should be eating. Never saw anything, any piece of evidence to back that up. But I never read the book. I just always felt that way. Never sounded right. So in this book, he goes into depth about that, about how everything in that eat right for your body type stuff is unfounded in anthropology. And he speaks about that in depth. And I'm like, oh, see, I always knew that. See, I'm smart. I'm telling you, I'm smart. So I always knew that. Never recommended that. And I never found a good reason to recommend that anybody be vegetarian or a vegan. So all those carbohydrates and stuff, that's not good. Because that feeds the bad bacteria. It can cause, gastrointestinal stress, digestive issues. And also, like as a woman, because we have a uterus, if our uterus is not centered, like a lot of women get told, oh, uterus is tilted to the left, oh, it's tilted to the right, oh, it's tilted back. And it's not like, we're told it's not a big deal. It is. If a woman's uterus is not perfectly centered, hold on a minute. It can put, like if a woman's uterus is leaning to the right or leaning to the left, it can put stress on the intestines. So now the intestines can't do its job and it's causing intestinal issues and digestive issues. And or if our digestive system is inflamed and backed up and has issues, it can put stress on our uterus. So like our reproductive organs and our digestion actually work together, especially as women. And so, but that bacteria, it really starts with that. And I'm trying to think, is there anything else I want to say? I'm trying to think, anything else? That your immune system starts in your gut. That has everything to do with your bacterial balance. That you want to be consuming lots of good animal foods and cholesterol, saturated fat. You need that for digestion. In order to digest protein, you need fat. Fat is so important. Fat is like my favorite thing to talk about. So I have YouTube videos called All About Fat. 1 and 2. I have a video called Intestinal Dysbiosis. I have a video on why veganism is propaganda, and I'm examining it from all different perspectives. I have another video about Afrocentric veganism. And so all these things that I've briefly spoken about, I have longer videos where I elaborate on those videos. But the main thing is to get probiotics into your diet, get fermented foods into your diet, and to me, the best probiotic supplement ever made that I've ever seen is made by Garden of Life, which is created by one of the authors of his book, Jordan S. Rubin. Now, I can't speak for all of his products, but the probiotics, to me, are the best. And that's because he has the most strains in his product. Like, when I say strains, it's like, if you look at yogurt, it'll say, like, Lactobacillus acidophilus. That's one strain. Or bifidum bacteria, something. There's different strains. And we have thousands of different strains in our gut. And then the way that they're measured is in colony forming units. So you can have like 5 million colony forming units, or a billion colony forming units. So you can have 10 billion colony forming units. So with the primal defense, he has the most variety of strains. Like he might have 15 to 35 strains in a product, and the potency could vary from 15 billion at the lowest to 100 billion. Now, when I look at a lot of the other products in the market, they have 3 strains and it'll be like 3 billion. So it's not as potent. Plus, the primal defense supplement, they have homeostatic soil organisms, which I also suggest you go look that up. But they produce hydrogen peroxide. They are so important for your immune system. So important for preventing infectious diseases of all kinds. Okay? It is up to us. Our immune system and not getting sick is up to us. It's not about other people making you sick and all that stuff. No. Okay? It's about your own micro ecosystem. If you get sick, it's because your microbiome, your micro ecosystem is already off. Okay? Stay away from the hand sanitizers and antibacterial soap. First of all, the hand sanitizers, they tell you that if you ingest it, to call a poison control hotline. So how is it a good idea to put that all over your hands and then you just have that on your hands and you go eat? First of all, I need to wash. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to get up in the morning and put body sanitizer on my body and not get under some running water with some soap and scrub. That's how you become clean. Not covering yourself with toxic chemicals that tell you that you have to call the poison control hotline if you ingest it. Things get into your blood way easier through your skin than through ingesting it. So that's poison. People be using that with their kids. Not a good idea. So I hope this video was helpful. I plan on saving it and posting it on my IG page. And I also plan on posting this video onto my YouTube page, The Body Scientist 81. So if you're not following me there, go follow it. Make sure you check out my other videos. And I'm always available to work with people one-on-one and from a distance. And so if you're interested in discussing that with me, you can email me at thebodyscientist81@gmail.com. And have a great day, my lovelies. Bye.